I grew up in Derry in the 70s and then the 80s. Went to school in Rosemount Primary School, and then went to secondary school in St Columns. When I was born, I was born in Rosemount, and then when I was about 2, the family moved to the outskirts of the city at that stage. And the city's now overtaken it in the meantime. But my father had a menswear shop in Waterloo Street in Derry, and the family generally had a series of shops there. Like his mother and his uncles and his aunts and cousins all had shops there as well. So with the shop up in the town centre, just overlooking the bogside, and then we actually lived then more in the outskirts. So as you say, growing up there was a lot of Lego. I loved Lego.
Did you?
Back then Lego was just blocks. Like now it's all specialist stuff and specialist kits and that.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I remember Lego. You could build it up. You had that sort of big platform with all the connections on it, and then you got the blocks. You built it up. You built houses. You got windows. You got doors. As you said, it's very sophisticated now, but it did trigger your imagination.
Yeah, I used to sort of build a new one every week, and then like sort of leave it on the mantelpiece for a few days, and then we'd get bored with it and take it apart and away again.
And try and construct something. And McConaghy was big, certainly in my day, around your area.
Yeah, McConaghy as well. Was more of a Lego boy than McConaghy boy, but a bit of McConaghy as well. And like the way electric motors and things, so you could get cranes working and stuff like that.
Exactly, yeah. So that sort of early inquisitiveness was there with you, how to construct things, how to deconstruct things, how to reshape things. And when you were growing up in primary school, probably hard to think back to primary school, is it? But had you any focus then on where life was going to take you, or where you went into secondary school? Was there anything on that horizon? Because I know when I was wee, I always wanted to be, well, 2 things. 1, a Blue Peter presenter, and 2, an astronaut. Now, I've achieved neither, but what were you dreaming of being when you were a young fella?
Well, no real particular targets at that stage. Like I didn't really know what I wanted to be. Now, looking at the Lego and McConaghy was maybe more scientifically minded, but I was the youngest of 5 boys, and there was no sort of scientific sort of stuff in the family or any medical background or anything. Like my 2 oldest brothers are both solicitors, and the other 2 then, they were both in the civil service. Well, Brian did law first and didn't really enjoy it, so he went into the adoption agency. So there's no real science there. So even when it came to do me GCSEs, O levels back in those days, when I did those, I did a spread, so I had a mixture of both. But when it came to picking A levels then, I wasn't even sure whether I was going to do science A levels, or because the brothers had all done English and history and French and whatever, like, so that was sort of the normal way. So
I suppose when you got the O levels, I think that's what they called them back then. It wasn't necessarily what you were going to do at O level. You were sort of maybe dropping a couple of subjects, and you went sort of
with basically arts or science then after that. So I mean, I had a good spread of O levels anyway, and did a few extra ones here and there too. So, but when it came to picking the A levels, I remember one of there was a form came around that you had to give the school an indication so they could have a rough plan to see how many they were going to have in each subject. So I hadn't really given it any thought at that stage. I just put down English, French and history or something. And a day or 2 later, my physics teacher I got on very well with, landed at the door of my classroom and said, "Could I have a word?"
What's this?
They brought me out to the corridors. I was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" So he talked me into doing physics, ended up doing maths, physics and chemistry A levels instead. But even then I still didn't know what I wanted to do with it. Like medicine wasn't really on the horizon. Like we've no medical background in the family. So there was no sort of real target to follow there. So I started doing, like in lower 6th, the part of the chemistry course was like a project, but it was basically biochemistry, and it wasn't called that, but that's essentially what it was. And that sort of started getting me thinking about medicine. Thought, God, I would be interested in this. So then I started digging a bit deeper and decided, right, well, that's what I want to do.
That's interesting. So it was that sort of 16, 17,
I was 16 or 17 before it even crossed my mind.
Before it even crossed your mind.
I didn't always want to be a doctor.
And funny, I don't know, but and probably this is wrong looking at the medical profession, but you do think there is a sense of family tradition, and people grow up with doctors and family and move on to be doctors. There's that tradition within families. Your dad and mum coming from the more retail aspect, as you said, there were no triggers there to send you in that direction.
Family came from the fruit background, like they were fruit wholesalers and retailers in Bishop Street in Derry. Daddy's family were all clothes, so it's menswear and ladies' wear and children's wear. So it was all sort of like a retail kind of background, and as you say, medicine generally runs in families. And unfortunately, if you fast forward a few years, then you find then that a lot of the jobs get given out according to the dynasties.
Yes,
so it can be kind of hard to break in then.
Yeah, and did you find that going through that A level year, as you were going through the subject matter, that you have to fill in the form, then the application form, where you're going to go to the next level, that focus on medicine and a passion to become a doctor was there?
Yeah, well, I hadn't even got biology O level.
Right.
I did physics and chemistry, and because I was doing a spread, I didn't do the third one.
Yeah.
I was doing, I think it was German and history then instead as my choices. So then the race, I was applying to Cambridge. Now I didn't get in, but part of their criteria is that you had to have biology O level to get into medicine. So I got in touch and I said, well, if I did human biology, there was one of the English boards had human biology,
right,
and that would be more relevant anyway. So they says, yeah, if you get that. So I started human biology in September of upper 6th year or 7th year as it is now, and taught it myself because the teacher said it was a waste of time. I would never get it, so there's no point in wasting time on it. So I started in September, sat it in January, and sort of got my human biology grade A, so that was that box tick. And then Cambridge turned me down anyway.
But still, and that shows sort of a sense of ambition and a sense of capability, that you could say, here's something I need, here's what I'm going to do, and here's what I'm going to deliver for it.
Yeah. Well, basically you find like if there was a criteria you had to meet, then you try and meet it.
Yeah. So going on from there, you obviously filled in the application forms. Where did you go from St. Columns then?
Obviously there was the two systems. There was the UK and the North, and there was the Republic of Ireland. So I looked at both. So it came down then basically to Queen's or Trinity. I got accepted into both because they're two different systems. So then the deciding point, obviously both sort of equally sort of high quality and prestigious schools. So came down then, so how am I going to make my decision? So then it came down to the cycling. Now at that stage I'd been doing a lot of cycling. At home there's one of the local sort of guys, Paddy Carr, is an incredible man. He spent a lot of his time sort of encouraging like young fellas like me and his own children, and spent an awful lot of time taking us out on Saturdays and out around the Inishowen Peninsula and stuff. So I was clocking up like 100-mile spins like with Paddy and the rest of the boys. So came down then at that stage I was racing. I think I'd been Derry Schools champion and Northwest junior champion in that. So come down then, we'll let the cycling make the decision. So then it came down to where's cycling going to give me more opportunities. And back then, like Dublin was a much bigger sort of cycling community than Belfast was. And again, I had contacts in the sport, so they made a few inquiries, and they said, well, if you move to Dublin, we'll get you into Orwell Wheelers, which was Stephen Roach's team. Right. So I got accepted into them round about, we sort of spoke to them, said about June, yeah, we'll take him on when he comes down in September. And then in the meantime, Stephen Roach went on and won the Tour de France, and then went on and won the world title as well. So by the time I actually went to Orwell Wheelers then, suddenly Orwell had gone up an awful lot in sort of notoriety. So I ended up riding for Orwell for 6 years, but it was basically the cycling then that was the tipping point for why I went to Dublin.
And isn't that funny how things that are almost tangential can influence life and can take you in a different direction, to a different location, how that might shape how your life goes forward?
Well, it's all part of your life. I mean, one of my professors in Trinity, Mario O'Brien, another incredible woman. She's still working clinically. She's got 4 private clinics a week, and she's 91.
My goodness.
But she was always very keen that you work hard, play hard, and she was always very insistent in our class that when you're a medical student, that's great, but what else have you got? Says otherwise you can become sort of very one-track minded and very boring. So she was always very keen to push me. She was the Irish Olympic doctor for 3 Olympics. So she's big into sport anyway, so she was always very keen to push sport. So like I eventually ended up in the Commonwealth Games panel towards the end of my college career. Now again, I didn't actually make the games because I think there was 16 of us on the panel, and it ended up like the other 15 were about full-time cyclists, and the guy was doing my finals in Trinity at that stage. And I got on then when I was an intern, I was doing 80, 100-hour weeks and trying to hold down a place on an international panel, which wasn't going to work.
Funny, you see that Philip Doyle, who rode for Ireland, got the Olympic medal for Ireland, is a doctor. I worked with his brother or his dad in the BBC, so he's obviously brought that sporting angle as well. I think he played hockey for Ireland too.
There's another friend of mine, Donald McConaghy, he's a GP in Belfast. He's just retired there in the last year or so, but I used to race with him when I was at the Northern Ireland races, and he was a GP at that stage, and I raced him as well. But he was actually a Commonwealth rower, so he rode at the Commonwealth Games in would have been '86, I think, in Edinburgh. And he had a day off, so he went and watched the bike race and thought, like, that looks interesting. And so he went and bought a bike. And 4 years later, the two of us ended up riding the FPD Millcross together.
Isn't that amazing?
I remember the first stage, we were riding out the Slane Road, and like we're hitting the guts of 40 mile an hour at that stage, and a bunch of about 180 sort of international riders.
Yeah.
And Donald turns to me, he says, like, geez, Niall, what have we done?
And see, in those, I mean, obviously, you know it, but you're millimetres away from something going wrong in a cycling race. When you are hammering along with all those cyclists either side of you, it's a hair's breadth between each of the bikes, between each of the riders. It must be an incredible experience when you're going at speed.
This one was going well. I say my first Ross, I think we got there about day 5. We were approaching the Connor Pass in Kerry, and suddenly it all did go wrong. I ended up going through a car windscreen.
No.
I ended up lying on the dashboard. Now basically what happens is that the roads aren't closed, so we're not allowed to cross the white line. But in reality, we have about 6 police outriders with us who go ahead and do what's called a rolling road closure. So they go ahead and pull all the traffic off the road for us, block off the junctions, and then there's another police outrider behind the race who then releases all the traffic.
Right.
So that was grand. There was a 10-man break up the road heading towards the Connor Pass, and there was all the cars pulled in the grass verge. The break went past, and all the following cars and the RT camera crew and everything. And the woman at the front of the line thought, right, that's it. So she pulled back out into the road again. Now, a few seconds later, another 140 of us come around the corner at about 30 odd miles an hour. Like, so there's a few of us went straight into her. So I hit her straight on, went straight through the windscreen.
Okay. Were many people injured in that?
There was a few people went down. There was a lot of damage to her car. Her car got towed away. I busted the radiator on it. Yeah. But I took the brunt of it. Now, I was very lucky. It was a smallish sort of car. And when I saw it, we all swerved to avoid it, obviously. Some of the guys made it. Some of the guys took the wing mirrors off. And I didn't get far enough across to get past. So I hit the front of the car. And then my knee then went through the radiator, left it into the bonnet. Then I bounced off the bonnet. And as it was turning then, so my shoulder went through the windscreen. And then the rest of my body followed. Now, if I'd hit it head on, I would have broken my neck. But because I was swerving, my body sort of took the impact and the windscreen shattered. So it meant that it took a lot of the force as well. So I just ended up with cuts and bruises, I'm glad to say.
Did that happen to you in slow motion? Could you
No, it was very fast. No, it was very fast.
Yeah. Because you get that sense of, it's the movie moment, isn't it? And everything goes slow and you see all these things happening, but that's gone within a second. 2 seconds, it's over. It's happened.
So that was the end of that year's Ross.
Right. Funny, an uncle of mine, Brian Monaghan.
Hello, Brian.
You know Brian?
Yeah.
And his son Barry, fantastic cyclist, fantastic. And you were saying Barry actually cycled in with you for a while.
I rode the Ross again 2 years later. It was the 1992 Ross. And again, I was riding for Orwell in Dublin. We actually had a spare place on the team because that was just a 9-day international tour. So there's only a certain number of riders who are going to be able to put in the time and the training and the time off to actually ride it.
Yeah.
So we actually had a spare place on the team. So Barry came and rode for us as a guest that year. So he was riding on the Orwell jersey as well, just as a guest for the week.
You never know how we're connected in this part of the world.
Yeah.
It's just
there's no secrets.
There's no secret. You have a chat with somebody and suddenly you find there's a connection there. So moving on then, when you went to medical school in Trinity, obviously my understanding is you sort of do a broad basic knowledge of medicine, then you specialise in different areas. Is that the way it would work?
We start with preclinical stuff, so you learn all like the anatomy, physiology, like the basic science, biochemistry and that sort of stuff. And then once you have that sort of tucked away, then you move on to the more clinical stuff. So you start learning there like pharmacology and pathology, like what can go wrong and so on. And you're up in the hospitals at that stage. Now, I think they've actually sort of blended it a bit better now, because back then you had about 3 years where you never saw a patient. And there's some people got to the hospital and then realised, no, I'm not cut out for this.
This is not for me.
And they ended up leaving. But like, they've now wasted 3 years. So I think they've sort of blended it better now that even the first years, I think, get some exposure on the wards. So they've more of an idea of what they're actually going into. I think it's a much better idea. Yeah. But no, so we did the preclinical stuff down like in Trinity, down in College Green. And then the clinical stuff then was up in St James's. So in Dublin, the 3 big medical schools basically have links to all the hospitals. So Trinity, we have James's, and it was the Meath Adelaide then, that's now been amalgamated into Tala. UCD has got St Vincent's and the Mater, and the Royal College of Surgeons has Beaumont. So that's where you train for each particular college. So we then had to decide between St James's or the Meath Adelaide. So I picked James's, which I think still is the biggest hospital in the country. It's about 700 beds on I think it was about a 56-acre site. So I trained there and did the 3 years of training mainly there. Now, again, you rotated around the other hospitals for lectures as well. So you're in and out of a few of the others, but you had your own sort of base unit then as well. And then once I qualified then in 1993, you get an intern job then. So your first year, you're still working under supervision. So you do 6 months of medicine and 6 months of surgery. So I did that then in St James's in Dublin.
And is there a moment where you've come through a very academic process, so you've come through O levels and A levels, and you do that initial grounding, you say maybe you don't see a patient for a number of years. Is there a moment when you start to realise the importance of the role and the career that you're taking on, that people's lives are in your hands? Is there a moment you say, this is incredible what I'm doing?
The first night on call as an intern, there was 2 medical interns and 2 surgical interns. Now my first job was cardiothoracic surgery, which is what I wanted to do in the long run anyway, and which I ended up doing. But you have 2 surgical interns on, covering about 350 patients at night. And basically the 2 of you are on your own, and you're sort of split between there's 7 different hospitals in St James's, so you don't even see each other during the night. So suddenly you getting called to go and see people, and you realise, no, I'm making the call here. I'm the one making the decision, and I'm the one deciding whether or not they escalate it to the senior guy above me or to the consultant, whatever. So that's what sort of hits home here. If I get this wrong, this is going to go badly wrong.
Yeah. And does that change you? Does that change the way you think, the way you approach things, the way you approach patients?
I suppose it was kind of like an evolution anyway. So I mean, you gradually sort of got more and more responsibility, and you sort of gradually stepped up. So when you were a student, you would be seeing patients, and then you would present them to one of the junior doctors who could sort of give the heads up. So you gradually progressed along that sort of continuum.
Yeah.
So it sort of happened sort of, it evolved as you went along. So there was no real sort of big black and white moment where you had your big flash of light and God, this is different.
Yeah. And as you progressed, as you said, you sort of graduated in responsibility. When you started to work as the thoracic surgeon, again, that's a big step up, isn't it? You know, that responsibility, you really are taking lives into hands.
Well, then, when I was a registrar in cardiac surgery, I did part of my training in Dublin. Then I moved to Belfast, did the surgical program there, and did a couple of years of cardiothoracic in the Royal Victoria up there, and then I moved back down to Dublin then as a registrar. So I was in the Mater. It was the National Cardiac Unit down there. You do 3 weeks in the Mater public and 1 week down in the Mater private. So when you're down in the private, there was 2 theatres, 2 registrars, and 1 consultant. So the consultant would be over in their office. We would start the case. So we would open up. You're sewing the chest open by yourself. You're getting the heart prepared, ready for the actual surgery. And then the consultant will come in, spend maybe half an hour with you. And the second theatre, we're running 30 minutes in arrears. So by the time he was finished with you, he just moves in next door and does the same then in the second case. And then we sort of do all the wrapping up then afterwards and get the chest closed and get everything sorted, and then start preparing for the next patient. So then, you were the only person in theatre, you were looking after everything at that stage until they came in. Now again, they're only across the way. If you get into trouble, you can send for help fairly quickly. But you're going from the responsibility then has sort of moved up. Sort of a ratchet then, because you've now opened someone's chest. You can sort of clip things in the way in that you shouldn't have clipped, and things can go wrong fairly quickly, and you're on your own there. But again, you're sort of trained about how to try and get things under control. Maybe not fix the situation, but sort of stop the bleeding while you wait for someone to come and help them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Fascinating that just that moment in time when you're looking at someone's heart open, pumping, and you have that responsibility to keep that person alive.
Or even during transplants, we were the transplant unit for Ireland as well. And I remember one of the nights, I had actually gone down to Cork, I think, to harvest the heart. The heart we were taking out of the recipient, it had coronary heart disease, so the muscle had been damaged, but the valves were fine. So what we do then is we then take the valves out of the heart that's coming out, and with a storage sort of bank in Ballsbridge in Dublin where we can keep them. But I remember I got and harvested the heart, and I held on to help out in theatre afterwards. So the guys were then preparing to put the new heart that we brought with us, put it in. and they then took the heart out of the recipient patient. So they handed it to me. They took over to a wee side table. They started taking the valves out. So I was walking away from the table, and like this heart was still beating in my hand. I thought, well, this heart's been beating for the last like 60 odd years. It's about to beat its last now as I'm walking away carrying it.
But you're giving new life and a new life expectation to that patient.
Well, like some poor unfortunates had a road accident or crashed their motorbike or something, or donor cycles as we used to call them. So that if they're brain dead, then you find a lot of their organs are still perfectly intact. So if they'd very generously donated organs that has saved maybe 7 people that night. So we taken like that heart and given like our patient a new lease of life. And then that heart had then been used to take valves out, which is then going to give someone else a new lease of life. So it means like the one sort of act of charity from someone being a donor can like make a huge difference to maybe 10 families.
Make a huge difference. Huge difference.
Yes, I love the transplant stuff, but there wasn't an awful lot of it back then. I think there's a bit more now.
And then there came a moment in time when you went and you opened a newspaper and saw a job ad for Aer Lingus pilots and went, maybe it's time for me to change and try something different.
No, you need to go back a wee bit.
Right.
I loved what I was doing. I really loved cardiac surgery. I was doing really well. It looked like I'd been fast tracked. That I was now 29. I was now in the National Cardiac Surgery Unit. I was now doing exactly what I wanted to do. But then we then hit the brick wall then with like the glass ceiling, if you like. That I realised that there's 3 training jobs here. There's 13 of us. Now there's a few of the foreign guys had they didn't need the training posts because what they were doing counted back in their own country, so they could go home and be consultants there.
Yes, yeah.
But any of us that wanted to stay in the UK or Ireland, we had to get one of these 3 training posts, and it came down then to who's going to get the posts. And it's like musical chairs. Some people are going to sort of be left without a stool when the music stops, and you maybe get a certain number of goes at it. But when they shortlisted for the job that I was going for, I wasn't on the shortlist. So I realised, right, so these guys are planning 5 years ahead. If I'm not on the shortlist now, I'm not being considered for a long-term training job. Because they've already filled all the jobs in their head like 5 years ahead. Like they know who's getting them all. And I realised, well, I'm not getting one. Now, at this stage, I'd already tried all the training jobs in the UK. And I think there was 72 of us in the British Isles at that stage at my level. So we're all going for the same jobs, and the local guys were always getting them. Fair enough. Tried America. I'd been shortlisted in Massachusetts General in Boston. I think there was 1,400 of us going for 8 jobs. So I got down to the final 40 and went over and did 4 interviews over 24 hours in Boston. And then the head of department pulled me aside and said, listen, look, there's 8 jobs. There's 8 guys from Harvard. They're getting the jobs. Now, if you want to come and work here, we're quite happy to have you, but it won't count for anything. So it's no use. So I applied for about 40 residencies, and same answer everywhere. I looked at Australia. Again, one of the guys I was teaching in Trinity, his father was a consultant there. So we got in touch and I said, no, again, we'll be glad to have you. We can give you work, but it won't count as a training post. So sort of left, like by the time I saw that ad in the paper, the training job in Dublin had been shortlisted on the Monday, and I wasn't on the shortlist, which I wasn't expecting. And I then had the weekend to think about it and try and talk to the consultants to find out what the game plan was, and couldn't get any straight answers. So by the Friday, I'd realised what the game plan was. Like, I'm not in it. So it's all 6-month contracts as a registrar. So my next 6-month contract was assured of going to the Blackrock Clinic, the big private clinic in South Dublin. So I was going to be there for the next 6 months. But after that, then it's all 6-month gigs. It's not leading anywhere. So you have to make a long-term plan. So on the Friday night, I realised, like, I have nowhere to go here. I'm not getting in here. There's no jobs coming up in Belfast. I've just been there. That's why I came to Dublin. There was no training jobs available for at least 4 years. I've tried the States, I've tried Australia, I've tried the UK. I have now nowhere left to go. I'm in a dead end. And after 12 years of training, doing what I really love, I suddenly realised, like, I've now nowhere to go. So it was 2 days later then, I opened the ad in Sunday Indo. So I didn't look at it and go, oh, I fancy a change. I thought, I need an escape tunnel.
Need an escape,
And I thought, like, I need something that'll give me a career. I think this could give me a career. So I saw the ad and just phoned up the number, and it all started rolling from there. But like, if you'd asked me on the Saturday night, I had the remotest interest. I mean, if the cardiac surgery job had been shortlisted the following Monday, I wouldn't even have looked at the ad.
And again, that's another moment, that's another...
sliding doors moment.
Isn't it? You know, that suddenly you can change and be looking in a completely different direction. And, you know, airline pilot, you talked to me about the views flying out and looking down over Cape Canaveral, and I'm going, I wanted to be an astronaut in the day, but it'd be wonderful to be down there on the launch pad. That's not a short journey either as a career. You know, you've a number of years of training for that as well before you get to get your wings.
You had to get selected first. There was 4,500 applied for the jobs, and they took on 38 that year. So I managed to get into that sort of 1%, whatever. And then you now go off. We were split between Oxford and Arizona for the training. So there's no guarantee you're going to get through. Now, like one of my Aer Lingus lads didn't get through. It's like usually about 10% of the students sort of went down, and so there was no guarantee you were coming out the far end with anything either. And like I was gambling a fair bit on this now.
Yeah.
The time